This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're talking about WandaVision, episode 1.
So, where did you two move from? What brought you here? How long have you been married? And why don't you have children yet?
I think what my wife means to say is that we moved from...
Yes, we moved from...
And we were married.
Yes, we were married.
Well, moved from where? Married when?
No, patients are... They're setting up their story. Let them tell it.
Our story.
Yes, what exactly is your story?
Oh, just leave the poor kids alone.
Well, really, I think it's a perfectly simple question. Honestly, why did you come here? Why? Damn it, why?
Welcome back, fellow Defenders. The Defenders podcast has returned to TV Podcast Industries. This time we're talking about WandaVision episode 1 on Disney+. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Defenders. I am one of your other hosts, John.
Bonjour, hello, auf Wiedersehen, goodbye. I don't know where else to go with that. But welcome back. Hello, it's great to be here. I'm in the roaring 50s, so... I don't know where I'm going with this one. It's just, I went roaring 50s and I was going to like, they're all quite pleasant and kind of cordial back then. So hello.
I'm wearing my pinny just to fit in. I'm cosplaying.
I'm podcasting in a suit and tie. Because you have to do that all the time, suit, tie and hat, all the time when you're working. But we're back as the Defenders, boys. It's been over a year and a half, I think, since the last time we recorded as the Defenders.
A couple of weeks.
Yeah, okay, we'll talk about that. But, the last Marvel TV show that we covered was Jessica Jones. We did season 3, episode 13 of Jessica Jones on the 26th of June 2019, guys. We're on the 14th of January 2021 now. So, quite a long time since we've been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, quite a long time since we've been in the Marvel TV Universe, and quite a long time since we've been the Defenders TV podcast. So, kind of cool to be back with our fellow Defenders talking Marvel, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
It is. It feels like 10 years. Like, it's only been 2 years, but it feels like 10 years.
I mean, even just, like, doing the Marvel 616 documentary series that we just did, the little sort of snippets of that documentary series, it was good saying... fellow Defenders.
It was nice, wasn't it?
Yes,
it was nice.
It was. And it's even better now doing it here with old Christoph in his new specs, there as well.
Exactly. And hopefully our wonderful fellow Defenders, our listeners, are joining us for WandaVision. We are going to be covering just the first episode of the 2 episodes that were released on the 15th of January on Disney+. The reason why is because every episode of WandaVision is pretty different. They're talking about different eras. They're looking at different TV types or TV tropes. There's going to be a great one for you, Chris. Lots of tropes in here to discuss. So we've decided...
Lots of bad tropes.
Yes, absolutely. But we've decided to cover just the 1 episode, and then we'll cover the 2nd episode at the weekend after everybody's gotten to see it. And hopefully, after seeing the episodes, you'll send us your thoughts about the episodes. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with any thoughts you may have about WandaVision and what you think about the episodes. You can also join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. I'll be putting up spoiler posts about each of the episodes of WandaVision as they are released on Disney+, and you can share your thoughts, spoiler filled as you want to, over there.
Absolutely. And you can support us any way you wish. Remember, you can go over to our website at tvpodcastindustries.com and you can subscribe to us there on any Wiccan or Android loving podcast player. And we are over on Patreon as well at patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, help us keep the lights on, help the gerbil. We feed the gerbil, he runs around the wheel, keeps the mics going.
And still that gerbil in the wheel.
Yes,
back
you will
to being the
always,
gerbil in the wheel.
it's just another song.
He bites.
I do not bite. One final bit of news, I suppose. Let's kick it off here, guys. Before we get into the episode, one final bit of news about our WandaVision coverage. John, once again, wants to run his pub quiz, which we all absolutely love. So we will be doing our WandaVision pub quiz with a question at the end of each episode of our podcast about the episode we've just talked about. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep. Yeah. And you send your answers on a stamped address envelope to, that's back in the 80s.
Yeah.
No, you send your answers to feedback@tvpodcastingindustries.com. Please, in the subject line, just give the question number that your answer is to, so that we know what it refers to.
Or hold them till the end of the season. We're going to have 9 questions,
That's
one for each episode. Hold them to the end of the season. Send them all in to us at feedback@tvpodcastingindustries.com with all of your answers for the 9 questions. And you could be in with the chance of getting some WandaVision Funko Pops. I have put in a pre-order for them. There are a bunch of Funko Pops on their way to us to give away as goodies, as gifts to our listeners who get the most questions right in the pub quiz. And for this season, we are also giving away Funko Pops to one of our wonderful feedbackers, one of our fellow defenders who sent us in some feedback. Everybody who sends in feedback to us, which we read on the podcast, we'll put into a hat at the end of the season, and you could win some of those WandaVision Funko Pops.
Yeah, exactly. PricewaterhouseCoopers will be busy, for sure, to verify the results, and so that we don't do an Oscar event.
Every time. We do not have PricewaterhouseCoopers on demand, standing at the side. You'll have to just trust us that we are giving the goodies to a deserving winner, which I'm sure all of our wonderful fellow defenders are.
But yes, with those rules, regulations, and notifications out of the way, gents, it's been too long.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go bathe in the MCU pool that is WandaVision. So
God,
with
the
that...
image.
Exactly, me bathing in a pool. Ew. Derek, do you want to tell us what the episode details are?
Absolutely. This episode was written by Jack Schaeffer, who is the creator, showrunner of WandaVision. In previous history, she wrote the screenplay for the Anne Hathaway Rebel Wilson comedy The Hustle, and was also one of the writers in the upcoming Black Widow movie. Which we'll hopefully finally get to see in May of this year. Really interesting that she'd be involved in Black Widow, which was supposed to come out about 4 or 5 months before this show, before WandaVision, and now the show's coming out 4 or 5 months before Black Widow.
Yeah.
What strange times we live in.
Strange
just like
times,
Wanda and Vision.
Absolutely. Strange times indeed. The episode was directed by Matt Shakman. He's been directing TV since back in 2002. He directed 2 episodes of Game of Thrones season 7, John, and an episode of Succession, one of our recommended shows of 2020. We've discussed him before as well, guys. Discussed him on our podcast as he directed the 2nd episode of season 1 of The Boys.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so we've seen Matt Shakman's work before. An episode of The Boys, very different to an episode of WandaVision, although I can't really say that there's anything that is the same as WandaVision, apart from the things they're referencing in the show, of course.
Yeah, exactly. It's certainly not The Boys.
No, definitely not.
Well, it could be. We don't know. That is the problem.
You never know.
It could be. It could certainly go that way, but at the moment it's also not like the MCU as we know it.
That's true. That's true.
Dun, dun, dun.
Speaking of the MCU, let's catch up on where these characters were the last time we saw them. Vision died twice in the battle to save Earth and the universe from Thanos. He was killed by Wanda to protect the world from the power that he has in the stone in his head, basically. Brought back to life using the Time Stone by Thanos. And then killed again when Thanos took the Mind Stone from his head, basically. So, he's kind of gone. He's dead, as we know.
Dead, but not forgotten.
Then Scarlet Witch, Wanda, disappeared, in the snap and came back at the end and had a pretty awesome battle with Thanos. One that she looked like she was going to win.
She was pretty annoyed, wasn't she? Pretty hacked off. It was like the worst possible day at work. And yeah, really went to town on Thanos.
Oh, big time, big time. And I think her big line, as we all remember, was, "You took everything from me," as she's about to destroy Thanos. And then, he gets out of there, pretty easily. But yeah, kind of shows you the power of her, shows you what happened what happened to Vision. He's destined to die, but, very different situation now. John, do you want to tell us where and when we are in WandaVision episode 1?
Sure. Recently married Wanda and Vision move into their new perfect 1950s life, But there's just one thing. She's magic and he's an android. As Wanda gets to know her new neighbour, Agnes, who helps to plan dinner for a special occasion, but there's just one thing. She doesn't remember what the occasion is. Meanwhile, as Vision settles into his new job at Computational Systems Inc, he tries to impress his new boss, Mr. Hart. But there's just one thing. Nobody knows what the company does. After cooking an exotic meal for Mr. and Mrs. Hart, Wanda and Vision prove they're the perfect couple. But there's just one thing. They don't know where they've come from or when they were married. After successfully entertaining the Harts, Vision is heading for promotion. But there's just one thing. Nothing is as it seems, and they are being watched.
Nice little twist there on the central trope of TV sitcom setups. Here's a new family that moved into the neighborhood, but there's just one thing. This is why our sitcom's unusual. Yeah. So that's where we are in the world of WandaVision. Everything seems like a very straightforward show. I think the first time we watched it, half-hour comedy, all seems very standard half-hour comedy, but there's just something going on in every scene to talk about.
Well, standard 1950s comedy.
True.
You know, I can't imagine them doing that sort of stand-up or that sitcom without it being a reference and moving to something slightly darker.
But gentlemen, it's been too long, and as I said, I'm dying to get wet. Let's dive in and start discussing the MCU pool that is WandaVision, episode 1. So I think...
As long as you don't wee in the shallow end, Chris.
No, I never do. For those who are joining us just for the first time with WandaVision, welcome. We usually cover all our shows with usually our top 5 points, and this we're going to jump right in with our first point, which is, this is very I Love Lucy.
It certainly is. It certainly is. Yeah, I think this is. Let's talk about the kind of top level, let's say, of where the show works before it goes into all the kind of deep connections and all the weird stuff that's going on. It really does feel like a 50s sitcom. They've done everything they can to make it feel the right way and make it look the right way. You know, it's all set in 2 sets, isn't it? Just a house and the office, basically. All the tropes are there. All the proper gags from the 50s are there. The misunderstandings because you don't really have a conversation with someone. They're completely missing the point of what's going on. The whole setup, really, of trying to impress your boss or else you get fired. Like, can you imagine if you invited your boss to dinner in your house and they didn't like your dinner, so they fired you?
Yeah, and didn't like your type of dress, like a polo neck.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Yeah. So how do you think this worked as a styling of the 50s, John? Let's try with you first.
Yeah, no, I like the black and white look. Like you even get the logo, the Marvel Studios logo going into that kind of era as well. Mm-hmm. And I guess it was just weird seeing it like this. But it did work because I think, and it's probably a theme that will run through all these points, is that behind it all, there is an underlying horror, I guess, for me, of what's happening to, Wanda and Vision. Mm-hmm. But, I loved some of the gags in here, and I definitely thought that Paul Bettany was really, really good. I think maybe from the British light comedy. Yeah. I loved his timing. I love some of his gags. But I have to say the one I really liked was where he's in the office. And I think it's Norm, the guy next to him, says, "You're like a human computer." And he's just like, "I'm certainly not. I'm a regular carbon-based life form made of organic matter, just like you, Norm." And it's just the way he delivered it, him on the ukulele. And I think my favorite gag was the lobster door knocker. I just thought that was awesome. And I mean, you know, it is all pretty light. It's all kind of slightly cringy, embarrassing. Yeah. Just as I remember watching these kind of programs in the 80s growing up, where it was just like, I mean, even then it was like they didn't seem kind of real. And the interesting thing is this doesn't, and it's not supposed to, because it's not supposed to be the real life for Wanda and Vision. Absolutely, so it is quite a nice little play on it, I guess. Yeah,
I love these two main characters, particularly. I think Elizabeth Olsen's doing a great job of 50s housewife in a sitcom. Her name comes up first, if you noticed, on the credits. So it's Wanda and Vision is the way that the names come up with the credits. Part of that is because Lucy was the bigger star in I Love Lucy, so you'd see her name coming up first. But I do think there's one touch that Paul Bettany brings to this in his performance. It's that TV was quite early in its time when these kind of shows came out. And you can see him playing to the audience almost, this live studio audience that's there. You can see him almost reading his lines like he'd be on stage in a comedy review. And he's actually pulling it off where he's looking exactly like some of the slightly poorer TV sitcom actors back in the 50s, I suppose, which is a great little touch to add and make him look like he's in that era as well. Chris, I have to ask, because it went through my head straight away when I was watching the episode, is this your absolute nightmare? A show of TV tropes from the 50s, not alone something recent?
So, I don't have the cultural touchstone that is I Love Lucy. Mm-hmm. Now, as we get into the 60s, 70s, 80s, I have some of those sitcom touchstones. I've seen those reruns. I know I Love Lucy. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I've never sat down and watched one episode.
Homework for next week, Chris.
Yeah, it's going to be. There is not a nightmare. It's just a cringe worthiness to it where I'm like, it's... So, I'll have two things. One, I do really enjoy the black and white aspect of this because it is so unusual. Mm-hmm. Although, they don't have that kind of chromatic kind of film grain to it, the black and white, which I think is missing. So it's just black and white, but it's black and white high def, 4K, like 1080p. You still can see all the details. So I'm like, do you know what would really just bring it back if they had have added that kind of 50s film grain to it? The chromatic abrasion that they have in some of the kind of other shows.
I guess.
That's one thing. It felt weird because it looks out of place because when you're watching a 4K stream that's like HDR and Elizabeth Olsen looks almost lifelike, but black and white, it's just, there's an uncanny valley to it slightly. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that might be on purpose as well. Remember, the whole show is kind of the uncanny valley of this shouldn't really be happening as well, right?
It's the weird thing though as well, isn't it? That basically all the women just look starched to death in there. Yes. Everything, it's like the hairspray has been dumped on the head, and the dresses just keep their shape all the time. And it in that sense, it's really kind of done very well for that era. And the men are always in suits. I mean, I just think like, weddings, maybe important days at work. And it's like, I very rarely wear a suit.
Exactly. And in fact, I think the last time I wore a suit was at Chris's wedding.
I certainly couldn't imagine relaxing at home of an evening in a suit. I'd be like, it would be a nightmare. But it is really good how they tap into that.
Yeah, but remember, they went to bed at like 7 p.m, so they'd be in their pajamas from like 7 p.m. back in the 50s.
I guess. But it's just great how they tap into something that, now we're looking going, that is unreal. Yeah. And for the show, it is unreal for them.
Exactly.
But all the tropes of I suppose the nosy neighbour or the helpful neighbour always sort of popping a head through the door. How many people's alarms and, the Google Nests will be going mental and police would be being called, and all this kind of thing.
Your neighbour popped over without calling in advance.
And who has lobster in their house, I guess.
Excuse me, hold on. Sorry. Let me just go check my fridge because I'm pretty sure.
As part of a 3-course meal as well. It's not even the central thing that she's cooking.
4-course meal.
Yeah, true. One of the other gags that I like, one of the other tropes, because it's the 1950s that I really liked in here was just that they can get away with any weirdness with Wanda by saying she's European. And the answer and the response from the hearts just being, well, that's very exotic, isn't it? She's made breakfast for dinner in the 50s and they're going, oh, that's very exotic, isn't it? That's very European. Grand. And get away with it. It's a real trope of these kind of shows. There's something that a loophole that allows them to get out of really weird situations, which I liked.
I might adopt the welcoming style, the hands over over the eyes. In future, once COVID passes and we can touch people and shake hands and all that, I will, I shall be using the hand over the eyes greeting. I think that is,
that's the
possibly
joke,
quite good.
That is the joke that worked best for me as well, when Mrs. Hart is leaving and she puts her hands over the eyes and said, "I was very happy with the meal, thank you," and leaves. That was very funny.
It was really, really good to see Deborah Jo Rupp as Mrs. Hart from that 70s show.
Kitty on that 70s show.
Yeah, just really, really good. And it felt very natural for her, as well, a bit with Paul Bettany, because in that sense, that 70s show is almost just a colorized version, a bit different, obviously, but it's that same style, or it comes from that same school. So that was great to see her.
Yeah, I think that, but before we move on to some kind of literally what's behind and the deeper meaning and stuff like that, I think now, for those who are joining for the first time, we watch one episode, record. Yeah. So we have yet to watch episode 2. As I'm sitting here, I'm like, and I know episode 2's there, and I'm happy about it because I know I can kind of jump right in. There's an element where I think if this is going to be a tough thing to digest for a lot of people, I think.
Mm-hmm. I guess so.
It's just something.
I think so.
It's something so different. There's something so unique, but very much so different about this episode, this show, that I'm like, there's a reason I Love Lucy is from the 50s. We've evolved in our TV, and there's a reason they're tropes because they've been used so much. And
absolutely,
this storyline of trying to impress the boss and 2 sets and just the very, very tough delivery of lines. Not the actors delivering the lines. It's just the actual lines are written from, and that's the thing I both love and is cringy, is they embody this show and this style and this I Love Lucy. It's just like, oh, that husband of mine. It's
exactly,
just
absolutely.
Yeah.
I can really see the casual fan coming on and watching this and kind of going, they flick it on and go, "Oh, I've heard there's a new Marvel show," and turn it on, and then for the next time a new episode is released, did they go, "That's that black and white show. I'm not watching that. Where's the punching and fighting?"
Absolutely.
Or whatever they're expecting from this. So yeah, I think we'll probably talk about that a bit more when we're wrapping up the episode as to what our overall feelings on the episode are. But let's talk about the deeper kind of elements of the show, because, that's the inspiration for the show in the 50s, the I Love Lucy. But it's what's going on behind everything that's going on in the show. Our case note number 2, what's going on behind the laugh track? Because I think that's so much more interesting, isn't it?
It's that crazy, what is it? Computational systems. It's like, what do we do? Where we do computational systems. What?
Yeah.
There's enough questions raised. There's enough words. There's something off. And that's the actual one thing I have to give it to this show. They lean into it being off. So the zeroing in on Elizabeth Olsen's face as Wanda when she's confused and just like, what, why? And the perfect example is that end scene where, as you said, Kitty, I can't remember, Mrs. Hart, is just stop it. It gets uncomfortable. And then you zero in on Wanda's face and her face is uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is as Mr. Hart is choking on some dinner that he's had after he's been giving out to them for not knowing their past, not knowing their history. Yeah. He starts choking on a piece of food, falls to the ground, and the scene goes on for so long that it does feel, hang on a second, this is really uncomfortable. And it's only when Wanda says to Vision to go and help him that Vision gets up and does something, basically. So that in itself says there's something weird going on here. Surely Vision would jump up out of his seat, Heimlich maneuver, save this guy if there were just 2 characters placed in this situation. There's something very different going on.
And I think that's it. At this stage, until that final moment of this episode, that's, I was still very much in the theory that you are in Wanda's mind. Mm-hmm. She is just creating this within her mind to deal with her grief, that kind of bigger picture, that kind of working theory, I guess. Yeah. And I think that's it. That was certainly the most sort of disconcerting part of the episode, was him choking, and Vision having to be directed to help him by Wanda. Yeah. I think as well, it's, just generally to the point, this second point of the laugh track, that is kind of, it's jarring because it was, as you were saying, when we watched it, Derek, and I've watched this twice now, and I felt I needed to watch it twice actually to kind of get over the shock of the black and white for the first time, in a sense, and how truthfully they go to the 1950s here, and those tropes that we talked about there previously. But it's the laugh track is disconcerting because behind it, actually, a lot of what they're saying is pretty dark. It's pretty sounds pretty bad for them, in that they don't know how they got there. They don't know what this date is. And they think it could be an occasion. It ends up being the heart's coming over for dinner so that Vision can impress his boss. But, they don't have rings. They don't know when they got married. And there's all these different things that are, it's empty. Yeah. And it feels a bit like those shows as well. And the laughter track fills that void in a really creepy way. It's really, really good. You get a sense of emptiness from it, which is what Wanda has, ultimately. Yeah, and what's happening in that perfect life that they're, at this moment, I thought she had created. So I thought it was really, really good. Yeah, absolutely. I love that kind of repeated mechanism of people asking them, the standard questions that you would have if you just moved into a neighborhood. Where do you come from? When did you get married? But the first person that asks it is Agnes, the next door neighbour, and Wanda kind of plays it off, kind of makes up excuses, but doesn't give any kind of real answers. The second time it's played with Mrs. Hart at the dinner table, it's really quick fire and really rapid, but it's almost like an interrogation. And she fires those questions to her really quickly, and then ends it with, why don't you have kids? Kind of thing. So it feels really, it feels really like an interrogation. It feels really scary. It's almost like it's stretching into that other staple of the 50s and 60s, Twilight Zone. At some points, it feels like it's about to go over into the Twilight Zone at points here.
I completely agree. And I think that's the thing. And we joke this point, what's behind the laugh track. I do honestly believe if you remove the laugh track from this show as an episode, right? It is that Twilight Zone. It is dark. It is dark. It's why I love the delivery of Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. It's, and actually even the rest of the supporting characters. Because if you take that laugh track away, they're giving you 2 episodes in one. They're giving you that Twilight Zone and that I Love Lucy. And depending on, what is going on in the background and kind of that laugh track and everything, it could be 2 completely different shows.
I'd agree.
Yeah. And also, I think at this stage, we'd seen Wanda kind of using her magic to cook the chicken and then revert it back to the eggs. And it kind of reminded me of the apple being eaten and then going moldy and then being brought back to a full apple in Doctor Strange. And because the time stone was used to bring Vision back, I suddenly was starting to think, is this kind of like an echo of Vision? That somewhere in the world of magic, there is an echo of Vision as a result of him being brought back to life. You've got 2 visions, and that's what she, with her power, is able to kind of connect with to try and have this world going on in her head, or kind of in her own space, wherever it may be. Now, by the end of the episode, you realize there's a slight different reality happening, but I was thinking along those lines as well.
Yeah.
As I was watching the show for the first time, because of her use of time, with the chicken and the egg.
Which came first?
Exactly.
Well, the chicken came first in this case, and then it returned to an egg, right?
Yeah.
So she's answered that question too.
It's also a flying lobster, so we can't really hold it against it.
One of the one I liked in there as well is just that initial conversation when you have Wanda kind of cleaning up the house, putting the plates around, and then she smashes a plate on Vision's head, and he says, "You with your flying saucers." And Vision with the unbreakable head. I like that kind of comment there. I wonder if the flying saucers thing is possibly a reference to maybe there are aliens in the future of the TV show here of WandaVision. Vision and his unbreakable head. Well, we know his head is not unbreakable because that's how he died at the hands of Thanos. So
the flying saucer is also Thanos' ship from Endgame, in the sense of it is a flying saucer come to Earth.
Yeah, it's a UFO kind of thing.
Yeah.
It could be a reference to that actually. Yeah. Absolutely. But now, time for an ad break. Not the usual podcaster way where we're gonna try and sell you a mattress. We are gonna use case note number 3 to discuss the ad break that we see in here, a 50s period ad for Stark Technologies Toastmate. A very interesting toaster. Guys, any opinions? And actually, Chris, since you're the Iron Man fan and Stark Technologies obviously is the maker of the Toastmate, what did you think of the toaster that we had in here? I think there's a little bit more under the surface.
It's Toastmate 2000.
Was the Toastmate 2000?
Yeah. No, I wish it was the Toastmate 3000, because then I love the 3000. I could have used that. Sure. I'm pretty sure there was some additional symbols on it. It looked like I need to figure it out. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, but I don't want to call it just yet.
Okay.
There is some additional symbols. Again, until we watch the second one, I can't be sure.
Okay.
I think the ad breaks and a lot of the stuff we're seeing in the background, so the bottle that we see when Wanda is filling the bottle of wine, the prop that now this has come out before, that it's the Chateau de M or House of M bottle of wine.
Maison de Mépris is what it's called. Mépris is a word for contempt, scorn, disregard, so all really negative connotations. Maison means house. So House of M, as you correctly say, is possibly what the reference is, but also a bottle of wine named House of Contempt, Scorn, Disregard, Despair. I don't think you'd sell very many bottles of wine. I know people don't tend to translate the names on the bottles of wine, but you probably wouldn't sell that many if they're named that way. No. But I know what you mean, Chris. Yeah, there's going to be a lot, I think, in the background of episodes. It felt like this is probably quite light, this episode, because I have so much to get through. But I just think it's important to note that Stark Industries are the ones that made this Toastmate effectively, because we do have Vision, who came from Jarvis, created by Tony Stark to help him out. So there's a direct connection between Tony Stark and this character of Vision and where he is. So just having that representation in there. Also,
the reference to toasters being like the Terminator.
wasn't that Battlestar Galactica? They were called toasters.
Yeah, or Battlestar.
Yeah. But I also think, and it's that toaster, the countdown to that going off seems much more bomb-like than I'd like in my kitchen.
Really does,
to be honest, the kind of red light counting down and down and down really feels like, hang on a second, she's hearing something in the background, something's about to explode, and she's incorporated that into her world.
That
was done that.
The most aggressive toaster tick down I've ever heard. I was thinking it was going to explode or something. Yeah. And to be honest, that could happen, given that it also can house cherry pie, open cheese sandwiches, or meatloaf. Yeah. So I just don't know how a cherry pie would remain, unless there was a bottom sort of drawer that you put it in. I mean, how would that ever be able to go into a toaster?
Never ever cook your cheese on toast by putting cheese on toast and putting it vertically into a toaster. It's not a good idea. Howard Stark was known as very much over-promising, or he was massively amazing with his technology, but he was very much into kind of providing the next dream for people. So this might have been what they wanted.
And they're advertising it for, quote, clever housewives, which I guess, again, it's in that 1950s trope that it's the woman in the house doing the housework, the cooking and all this kind of thing. But certainly it seems as though Stark Industries is the one that's not clever here by saying you can put a cherry pie in it.
Well, also the actual question they ask is your husband sick of you burning his toast for him?
They do, don't
The answer
they?
in 2021 would be yes, he can go and make his own toast.
Exactly.
But there you go.
We are a PG podcast, so we can't actually say what she would say.
Yeah.
But very quickly, I think you're onto something with the ticking and the time, the wait. My guess is much like everything else in this show and this episode, there is more behind this advertisement. So potentially we'll find that in reality that actually toaster was a ticking time bomb, or it's a heart machine, or it's something else that beeps. I get the feeling, again, just because of the last 30 seconds or last 2 seconds of this show, there's more behind everything that we see here. So moving on, gentlemen, let's talk about point number 4. And in this case, the nosy neighbour, the supporting, one of the main supporting characters that we can see, Agnes.
Yes.
So just to let people know, she is a character that we, just based on the name Agnes, and it's been her last name that's been said, so I'm not going to give away too much, but this is definitely a big character, so we see her as a supporting nosy neighbour. There's definitely more to it as well.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, there's a few characters who we know are coming up in the series. We're probably not going to spoil those on here until we get a bit closer, a bit deeper into the series.
Yeah.
Absolutely right, Chris. But the Agnes character here, this is totally a trope of these types of shows, of 50s and 60s shows. The neighbour that arrives on the doorstep at that one moment when either you don't want them to be there or they have to be there. I wonder, is that trope a bit different in this show? Is she potentially connected to whoever's watching what's going on? Is she potentially arriving at the right time or arriving at certain moments because she's watching on, like the Truman Show, for example? That she's kind of placed there to watch over what's going on with Wanda and Vision.
That's what I thought, because it is the nosy neighbour trope. I mean, you know, on the face of it, that's what you remember from those shows, and even just, you know, people going to their neighbours, being more neighbourly, but it's also
when we could leave our homes.
But it's also, well, yeah, exactly. But that, you know, Agnes is always popping in. You know, you have to have that trust, and whether in this world, in this 1950s perfect world of Wanda and Vision, she's abusing that trust because she's popping in to keep tabs on them. You know, but I like it that on the face of it, you know, she's got the mother-in-law joke. I'm the neighbour to the right. What's your bridge?
My right, not your right.
Yeah. What's your bridge game? You know, she's got this off-screen husband in Ralph. There's, you know, who doesn't have a 4-course dinner party, food just lying around to bring over, all these kind of different things.
Wouldn't have a 4-course meal ready to go,
You know, the magazines telling her that, you know, to impress her man in Vision with the candles, which I loved, actually. I loved this touch, the kind of the headscarf over the lamp to give it a more sultry, lighting. I thought that was really quite good. So I really, on the face of it, I think she's really well kind of observed, but I agree with Chris. I reckon there's more to it. And like you say, the Truman Show idea of her being kind of watched and monitored.
Yeah.
So first, I love Kathryn Hahn. I just love her as an actress. She is, the delivery, it's just always fantastic in most of what she's in. And I think she'll be introduced to a lot of people from her comedic perspective for this show. The way I see it from this episode is she's potentially trying to help. I don't see her as the supporting kind of, as you said, the Truman Show, the kind of cast. If anything, she seems as confused, but she's delivering certain lines as almost the same way that Mrs. Hart was delivering certain lines. And then that stop it is breaking character, breaking lines, breaking script. And you see that with the what she does in this as well. The way that there's certain lines that she delivers as well that seem almost like she's breaking script. And I think that I'm wondering if that be the same way that Wanda breaks script later on, where she's like tells Vision to save him, to save Mr. Hart. There's this breaking of script aspect. So I'd love to, I can't wait to see again, these are all theories with 30 minutes of TV.
Exactly.
Well, welcome to WandaVision, people. Welcome to Defenders. This is what I do.
Yes, have some theories as we go. And, you know, the good thing is we can go straight on to the second episode after we finish talking about this one. So we'll hopefully get a bit more information about what's going on in the world of WandaVision.
Yeah.
One final point, though, which is the finale, the end of the episode, because as we mentioned right from the beginning of the episode, from those wonderful opening theme tune of WandaVision. Really good, really fun, theme tune written by, the team that brought you, Book of Mormon.
Oh.
And the wonderful, Disney or wonderful Pixar movie, Coco. Absolutely amazing. And some other Disney movie, Frozen, is it?
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, but great to have a kind of 50s style theme tune right at the start going all the way through this episode, and it all seems pretty kind of standard. It's kind of standard 50s show with, as we mentioned, a bit of odd stuff going on in the background. And as the show ends and they smile for the camera, it pans back to somebody watching on.
Yeah, who's watching Wanda? This is really good. And it's the idea now that, my theory that it's in Wanda's mind, it's suddenly, okay, it's more like the Truman Show, or someone is holding Wanda in place here, or she's being monitored maybe wherever she is, and we get a few. It was only the second time where I saw the sword symbol on the screen and the notebook. Sword, shield in space, I guess, even though that's technically not true. I know.
Before we even started podcasting, I told John not to say shield in space, because it's not shield in space.
Well, we've got plenty.
Agency with a different acronym.
I know.
And Nick Fury had hardly any involvement with them at all.
It's kind of like Moon Knight, Batman in Marvel. I know, that kind of thing. I know, I'm being controversial now, but, we do see this symbol of a sword, with a circle around it on the notebook by the person who's watching it.
Yep.
And I felt that it was a female. Again, I'm just wondering if that's Agnes in maybe the real world.
Agnes in space.
Agnes in space. Well, there's certainly a sitcom there that we can go to in WandaVision. And then on I think one of the computer screens next to the TV, the old TV, you had it in the bottom corner, of the data that's coming out from that computer, I guess.
Yeah. So a really intriguing final scene.
I did not think we would bring that up. So, yes, that symbol is also on the toaster.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's baked into the actual design on the toaster. So
baked in or toasted in?
Above the light?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Which is interesting because it's not a Stark symbol.
No, exactly. That was one of the I was looking for the S and the T and on the Stark, and I was like, oh yeah, that's not there. Why?
So swords heavily involved in there, definitely. I know we have a bunch of other podcasters that listen to our podcast as well. We have a lot of wonderful podcasters like ourselves, who may recognize the other piece of equipment, that was in that, monitoring booth, let's say. A piece of equipment that every podcaster who gets enough money wants to buy. It's a mixer, specifically created for podcasting by a company called Rode, who make, I know, all of our microphones, but it's about a 600 quid piece of kit, called the Rodecaster Pro, and it's very, very prominent right there. A little bit of product placement for Rode. I wonder if this is just a podcaster who's making her podcast on Wanda and Vision.
It could very well be.
Just like all of us.
So it's basically Deadpool. They're breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll pull back, and it's not a sword symbol. It's just the new TV podcast industry symbol. That's
Surprise! I'm so excited by this ending. So this is the bit that I'm like, It's so weird. It's so jarring going in the first 27 minutes, 28 minutes of this show. Not jarring in a good way. I mean, I have to say,
but it is. This. I think you're right. I think that's the challenge for the show is it is jarring, and it's, as Derek says, and you've said, the casual listener potentially, or casual watcher, I should say, it may not be their thing. Yeah. It may not float their boat, and before it's finished, they could have turned off. Yeah. Who knows?
I think that's going to be the interesting part.
Oh, and one final thing on the end of the show is, I just thought we had gone through the Bond opening sequence, because you get the kind of the colour end credits, and they look like opening credits. And I just thought, because this was a double header, 2 episodes, I wondered whether it was merged in or it was part of the first episode, because I felt we were about to go into a whole new thing right at the end, and it was going to be a continuation of episode 1, and this was just like the music credits and the opening scene of Bond. We've just been treated to a 30-minute prelude to then another 30 minutes. And I thought that was kind of interesting. That mixed with my mind slightly at the end.
That you hadn't realised it was only a 30-minute show, or that it was...
No, I thought we were going to have another 30 minutes straight after that. I thought it was going straight through, that they had edited them together.
Right.
And it was the first episode, and this was the actual kind of main part of the episode, I guess, if you want to know.
Well, do you know what the really unusual thing about their credits are? In the black and white credits, they actually name a writer and director of the episode that aren't the writer and director of the WandaVision episode. I don't know why. I couldn't see who the people are. The show was written by Leonard Hooper, who is not a writer in Hollywood at all, and the episode is directed by Abe Brown. And they're not the credits for the TV show. So I don't know what these credits are added in black and white onto the show. We may see something in future.
Can I tell you? I think I know. I think that these are going to be characters of when we get outside of the TV part, that these are people within. So, like, that those people that you named are going to be characters that we meet later. These are going to be characters who are outside, who are watching, so they are controlling the show. So they are the Truman Show director of that piece. I think that is what we're going to see, because I noticed the exact same thing, just because I knew who the writer of this was, because of Black Widow. And I should say from Hustle, because I actually enjoyed that film. I'm sorry. I know a lot of people didn't, but I did.
I really enjoyed The Hustle. Yeah, it was really good fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Can't beat it.
Guys, any notes for the episode? That's kind of our top 5 points for the episode. Any notes that we have?
Nothing. We've talked about most of it for this one.
The only thing that came up with me was Catherine Hahn, was Doc Ock in Into the Spider-Verse. I'd completely forgotten. I didn't recognise her voice at all, but that's kind of cool. So this is kind of her second foray into Marvel.
And the only thing for me, and this is just a general knowledge thing, was when Paul Bettany says it, he says, what about some parcheesi? I was like, what the hell is parcheesi? I thought it was like kind of some kind of like Cheetos, but from the 50s or something like that. But it's an American branded Indian board game with crosses and circles,
like Ludo.
Yeah. But not Ludo, Parcheesi.
Yeah, interesting.
But it sounded like a snack.
A parlour game from the 50s. Very cool, very cool. Guys, I've been waiting for a year and a half to say this properly again. So, will we start with Chris? Chris, do you defend WandaVision Episode 1?
Do I defend it? Yes, I do. Do I think the overall world and audience will defend it? I don't know until I watch Episode 2.
I don't know until I've heard their responses.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. This is a weird opening. I loved it. It's interesting. I would binge into this second episode if it wasn't for this podcast, because the person I watched it with went, I don't know about this, literally as those credits went on. And I was like, oh, no, trust me, it's going to be cool. Like, I had to explain some kind of aspects to it because it is so unusual and so jarring and just different that, it's a tough one. Do I defend it? Yeah. Yes, because I really enjoyed it, the weird and wackiness of it. I just don't know if the wider world will in this initial part. But there you go. John, do you defend this episode of WandaVision?
I do defend this episode of WandaVision. Like yourself, I think it's a tough one in the sense of it's just not what you're expecting, which is fantastic. And I think absolutely watch it again with a different kind of mindset of it being a horror, and that actually in some ways you should be ignoring that laughter track because I think the first time I literally just kind of watched it. I let it just sort of waft over me in a sense. And it is weird, seeing that whole thing, from the 50s being done so well. But I think it's clever because it is about it not being real for today and not being real for them. I think it's got horror in there. It has, all these different things, and that ending is just like, okay, I want to know who's watching them. What is this? So I absolutely defend this episode. I would give this 4.5 lobster door knockers out of 5. I think, it's definitely worth the view, and I think it's really well done. And I think through both watches for me, the thing that I think was the most disturbing was when Mr. Hart is choking, and you have, you do have stop it coming from Mrs. Hart, and seemingly everyone around the table other than Mrs. Hart who's saying stop it, and Mr. Hart who's choking, Wanda and Vision look frozen. They don't know what to do, and seeing Vision having to be told to help Mr. Hart. I thought that was the common thing that really made me kind of, okay, jump up, was that for sure. And I like this motif of the sword, and sword, the agency in space that's nothing to do with S.H.I.E.L.D. And that's really, really good as well. And just seeing that sort of continually kind of popping up. Yeah. But Derek, do you defend episode 1 of WandaVision?
I totally defend this. What's so interesting is that Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to come out first. That's what is totally intriguing me now. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was supposed to be completed and put out before WandaVision. WandaVision was going to lead into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. All of the moves that have happened, this feels like the weirdest one because everybody would have known what they were getting with the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Everybody would know this is 2 armed guys going on some form of mission. You've got a concept in your head. Well, WandaVision, no concept in my head would have prepared me for this. I've seen every trailer, and in my head I was kind of going, I wonder actually what's going to happen in the first episode. They're going to run through all of these different eras of TV, and it's all going to be cut together, and we're going to find out some overarching villain or enemy or something that's happening. Nope. They have gone completely out of the MCU ballpark, completely out of anything we've seen at the first episode of any superhero show. Can you imagine that the credits roll at the end and you get 1 minute of something going, this is weird, they're being watched, come back next week. They are really trying something new, and I love that from the MCU. We've had, 22 movies. We've had 7, 8 TV shows, and I don't think anything has sparked my interest just purely in what is going on. I want to see the next one. Not that it's greater than every other first episode of the series that we've all watched and loved over the years. It's just, I'm going, what is going on? I can't wait for next time. And everybody's playing a really good game here. They're playing the 50s era really well, throughout the episode. So really, really good. That is the end of our discussion of WandaVision episode 1. We have one more piece of business before we clock off and head off to our jobs and come back for episode 2. We have our WandaVision pub quiz.
Yes, fellow defenders, join me with your maison d'empris for a nice glass of rouge for question 1 from episode 1. Remember, answers by email at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. So, question 1. What 4 courses was Wanda cooking for Mr. and Mrs. Hart?
Ooh, yes, very good. 4 courses, John.
Yes. What 4 courses was Wanda cooking for Mr. and Mrs. Hart? Or at least making the attempt to cook, I should say.
Very true.
Please, answers to feedback at TV Podcast Industries. And at the end of this series of WandaVision, we will pull out a winner, the person who has gotten the most number of questions right. And of course, you're in line for Funko Pops, WandaVision Funko Pops.
Exactly. We want to hear from you. Email us with all of your thoughts for this episode and any of the other episodes for WandaVision to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com. If you want to get the questions from the episodes, we'll be putting them up on our website at tvpodcastindustries.com/WandaVision-pub-quiz. That's the closest I could get to having something easy. Just go to tvpodcastindustries.com. There's a button there that you can see all of the questions. They won't be going out before the episodes. Don't worry. Won't spoil anything. So you'll see the questions on there. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your thoughts about the episodes. Please stay subscribed to the podcast. You can go over to TV Podcast Industries to find any of our links to any of the Wiccan and Robot or Android supporting podcast players where you can find the podcast. But we've loved talking about this episode.
Yeah. Been really, really good delving back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe on TV.
Yeah. It's all connected.
Oh my God, I forgot about that line. Oh my God, that tagline just brought back memories.
Oh.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next time with WandaVision Episode 2, which also aired on Disney Plus this Friday the 15th of January. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much, fellow Defenders, for joining us. Really good to have you back again for Marvel Television. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep laughing. Or in another alternate reality, it's keep watching, keep listening, and keep defending.
Yay!
Bye.
We're back, people. The Defenders are back.
Yeah, great to be back. Bye. Talk to you next time.